Welcome to another episode of What's Working in E-Commerce. I'm Eagan Heath, the owner of Caravan Digital, and today I have on Joshua Uebergang from Digital Darts all the way from Australia. Joshua, thank you for joining us.
G'day, Eagan. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to chatting more with you today.
Yeah, right on. So we really play in the same space here. You've got an agency. I think you mentioned you guys are doing SEO, Google Ads, email, Facebook ads. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the big four. And yeah, seven-figure agency with about 10 team members at the moment, mostly in Australia. Yeah, we're specializing in Shopify.
Yeah, that's right. Shopify experts. Well, congratulations on all the growth and all the success. I would love to ask you about every single channel, so I'm sure we'll have, multiple discussions over the years here. I think for today, I want to start with Facebook ads, and you've mentioned specifically scaling Facebook ad accounts and just kind of that whole world. Obviously, everyone's been shook up by the iOS 14 update and everything that's happened in the wake of that. You guys are still finding success there. Can you just talk to us a little bit of what's working in Facebook ads and how are you guys scaling up performance?
Yeah, there's definitely no doubt that 2020 sure saw a hit. It shook up a lot of small businesses that were unsure of, didn't have perhaps pixel data. And so, but having said that, it's made our agency and a lot of marketing managers that we've spoken to better, more intelligent by actually going back to fundamentals of what old schools used to look at, but they didn't have a pixel stalking the users. And so there's two things that you know, what you spend and what you made. And back in the day when you could see you put $1 in and make $4 in Ads Manager, that I think pulled us marketers away from that. And I've always been that. I've loved seeing you feed the slot machine $1 and you get produced and given that. And it's a lot easier to report on. Like everyone wants to see that. And so understanding your goals first is definitely the biggest and I think the hardest part of Facebook marketing these days, because you're no longer in a single platform. You're in multiple tools like Google Analytics. Like you should be tagging your ads, UTM parameters, and then cross-referencing in Google Analytics as one source. You can use Data Studio reports, and my big favorite now is Triple Whale, although it is more of a premium solution for some smaller businesses can use it, but they've increased, I think, to 300 a month or something. And so, yeah, understanding goals, particularly the marketing efficiency ratio, it's got a ton of names, MER, which looks at the amount of ad spend going into revenue produced. And what I really love about that as a holistic goal is it controls the cash flow, which is the lifeblood, it's the oxygen of a business.
Now, Joshua, you mentioned you guys are using Triple Whale on the analytics side, and you also mentioned UTM parameters. Can you just talk a little bit about that, of those other tools that people might not be as familiar with?
With the loss of a lot of Facebook data from iOS 14.5, looking at multiple sources has been really helpful. And so what I particularly like about Triple Whale is the analytics of understanding your customers is hard on any other platform. And because you have to be able to pull in the data that you actually have and know, which is in your WooCommerce, your Shopify store, your platform where you actually have the customers, you see the frequency they've ordered, and to be able to pull that data in to see the cost to acquire them, and without actually having that some type of integration there. You can do it through Data Studio a little to an extent, and to be able to pull that in, you can actually figure out a new cost to acquire a customer. So not just to acquire a customer, which is even harder today because of Facebook gears itself towards acquiring the people that you already have. So even a cold audience will seek to acquire the people that are in your customer base because they're going to convert a lot better. Being able to dial in on this number just helps your campaign so much because you'll be building brand awareness, etc. And so I'll share my screen just to give you an idea of the metrics that is possible through it. And so through this account, you can see this MER figure here at 23. So it's a measure of ad spend revenue. So pretty much for every $4 they make, $1 of marketing spend has gone into it. So this particular account They're running Pinterest, Facebook ads, and Google ads. So not Snapchat or TikTok, which the icons are just there because the integrations there are possible. And then through here, a cost a new customer ROAS, which is a really powerful thing that you want to be driving more decisions from. And so this dashboard in itself is the meat of what I love about Triple Whale. Yeah, there's certainly a lot more that you can go into. I can just flick through to give everyone an idea.
These stats, Joshua, can you talk us through each of these? Some people are going to be listening to the podcast too, so it might just be interesting to know what lives in here.
Yeah, so in the summary dashboard, there's a net profit figure. And in the end, profit is oxygen of the business. And so that's what you care about. You can also see a part of the profit that never gets considered in any marketing is the return percentage of a product. And Google Analytics doesn't factor that in unless you've got some complex custom integration for most businesses where a return gets processed, has to be pushed through to the platform. And so you get an idea of the return percentage, and that gets factored into profit in your calculations too. And then you get a total ROAS figure across all campaigns, which paying less and less attention to just because the MER figure is a very similar measure to it. And then the new customer cost per acquisition, which I tend to not love working in e-commerce because you get such a varied average order value. And so I tend to work more towards ROAS. The cash turnover figure, the clients tend to love that. I don't do anything with it. Another big one is the profit on ad spend.
On cash turnover, do you know how that's defined or what that means?
I can bring up the definition here. So to read it out, cash turnover is the sales minus shipping, minus taxes, minus blended ad spend, minus returns.
Oh, okay.
So it's a pretty accurate measure of the raw cash that's coming in. Not too sure. It's net profit basically.
It sounds like net of variable costs basically, right? Including advertising. So that's nice.
Correct. Yeah.
I guess something that comes to mind here is, when I think when the iOS update happened, a lot of people who kind of grew up in the paid social, Facebook world in terms of analytics suddenly had to jump into Google Analytics. And it's all personally identifiable information is gone. Like that's part of Google Analytics terms of service. And so you don't really have that. So it looks like a tool like Triple Whale is pulling more data from the shopping cart, kind of like Klaviyo does, and giving you more in-depth reporting than just Google Analytics is able to. Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, I think you can do a lot with a platform like Klaviyo as well. It requires custom work, but in terms of raw financial data, you need to be pulling in from these multiple sources. And so that's one actually other platform I didn't mention, Klaviyo.
On the MER front, I'm curious, when you started talking about this with clients, did you get any pushback? And I'll tell you right now, the thing that we hear if we're just driving paid for some clients is they're saying, yeah, but my direct, my SEO, my referral traffic, other sorts of traffic sources that are converting are counting toward that revenue number. And should advertising really get credit for that, in that respect? How do you respond to that? And I'm curious, how do you talk with clients about MER and how have they received it?
Yeah, it was definitely the toughest conversation I reckon we had last year. And there are actually still a few businesses, I would say today, that are very adamant on a ROAS figure because of the cocaine nature of what that represents, like what I talked before. People want to know with confidence, with immediacy, that they put in $1, they see $3. And so I shift that conversation primarily by getting them to reflect on their own purchase behavior. So thinking about a big one, I'm a new parent and you do a lot of research in products. And so something that applies to them. So in searching, say, a pram, you will never go out and buy a pram. A Google search, click on an ad. Sure, I want to buy this product.
Yeah. And for US listeners, that's a stroller, right?
Stroller, yes. Put the stroller in your boot or your trunk. And you'll chat with a friend, you'll jump on, search the brand, you'll maybe jump on Reddit and see the conversations that are happening there. You'll sign up to the email lists as you're further down the funnel. You'll learn more about the brand, but in the meantime, you're also sussing out this other brand that you've heard about. And this can go on for 30 days. And if you are not considering these other metrics, you will by nature ignore this tracking. And this is what I'm saying about has made everyone better marketers actually in this. The people who have actually adapted the loss of the pixel stalking. We're actually knowing what we're spending and what we're making. And
Okay, the overall business metrics and bottom line is this investment in marketing making sense? Is that right?
yeah, so it's not just the loss, it also helps this multi-channel world that we live in, which is only growing more and more, I think.
I see. So that funnel you're describing, we search for things, but we don't just search and buy. We're doing research. We're in the consideration phase for a while, particularly if it's a moment in time purchase.
Yeah, Google have been saying, I think in their Smart Insights report for many years now, a lot of purchases, people have 27 touch points. And it's kind of an advertising classic to say that someone needs to hear of your brand 7 times before purchasing. I don't necessarily believe that, but it's an element of truth with the frequency, all the consideration stages that people need to work through to end up buying.
That makes sense. Can you talk to us or show us a little bit of what's working with Facebook and Instagram ads these days?
Yeah, I can bring up an account. If I have to summarize what is working in one word, I would say simplicity. It's a misbelief that the more an account grows, the complex an account gets. And so in setting up campaigns, you may think you need to use interests, lookalikes, this most complex remarketing where you're targeting people after 1 day, then you've got a different ad targeting people 2 to 3 days. Then as they progress that you haven't purchased, so you've got to perhaps you can offer a discount for 7 to 10 days of people who added to cart, treat them differently to people who just saw a product page. And that's definitely the biggest misnomer. And if you are doing that, it's killing your campaign. And typically the way we like to see campaigns structured, you got top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. In this example here, defined by MOFU, TOFU, and BOFU. And this, I would say, is actually more complex to build, just based on you may have TOFU campaigns. It's not even, if you're struggling with a structure in a simplistic one, you can even go further and just merge your MOFU and BOFU together.
Yeah, talk us through these top of funnel ones. I'm very curious. These look great.
I'm a big fan of good naming conventions. A good naming convention gives clarity with what a campaign, what an ad set, what an ad is. And so I would say 90% of the accounts that we look in, it takes you at least an hour to see what's going on, because you have to look at how everything's configured, and it's a mess most times. And so I love the naming convention of a date, so a day, month, or a year, depending on your nationality, and then TOFU, then country targeting. I like to separate these by underscores. Then the targeting, so broad in Facebook ads is, so you're not using any lookalikes, you're not using interests. It's just you're letting Facebook reign free, and you may have some demographic targeting. So you might, if you know your audience is young mums, you might go from 18 to 35.
Mm-hmm. And looks like even with this broad targeting for the year, it looks like you guys are getting a 4x ROAS, even with the limited pixel data, so on and so on. Facebook broadly find us some customers, and it still worked.
Yeah, and so this client we haven't been able to get over to triple wow yet, so we still have our hands tied behind the back and working off a ROAS figure. That's a conversation that's still being had. Typically, it's not unusual to have a single ad unit per campaign for a broad like this, which is actually effective. It's once you perhaps get into testing where you'll slip in a second campaign to try a second ad, to beat out the ad. So this isn't a mature one, but we're doing a dynamic test, dynamic creative test, which involves putting in multiple images and letting Facebook do its own thing, to move through just a few other aspects of Typically, I like to separate in e-commerce catalog sales and conversions for bottom of funnel as well. So catalog sales uses your catalog, which you can set up through WooCommerce, Shopify, and pulls in data from your store and will show based on what people see on the store. So if they look at a particular product, they can get shown that ad. And is there anything else you want to reveal or dive into this?
Yeah, I'm most curious, I think, on the targeting piece. I like that campaign structure you highlighted. Um, I think for each piece of the campaign structure, I'm curious, what's the targeting? And then if there's anything to call out, whether it's these dynamic ads or other ones, are there pieces in the creative that you guys make sure we do X or Y?
Yeah, talk about creative more. So in terms of lookalike audiences, bigger is better these days. I would say at least 3%, but I typically like to even go up to 8% lookalikes. And so you can run it off your purchase of the pixel. You can also, this one is 36%, which you can see the handiness of the naming convention. So I don't even need to click through and inspect the settings for everything because we can see it's a 3 to 6%.
So for this one, it looks like we've got different. If you can just talk us through the targeting on one of these.
You've got so many options with the audiences that you can use. With Klaviyo integration, you can build lookalikes off your repeat customers if you have a large enough customer database. I would say at least 1,000, even more, 2,000 would be ideal. Building off lookalikes of those. You've got engaged audiences, so people engage. I've never gone beyond just the broad engagement within Instagram or broad engagement with Facebook. Like you can get people who share, who comment. I prefer to just go broad, as in the total people who have engaged. And so this one, as an example, is a 30-day engaged of that. And they have been testing more and more in explicitly excluding customers. This example doesn't. I would say most of their campaigns don't, but I'm finding, we're in a transition, I think, of doing a lot more customer exclusions to help push for those new customers. The quirky thing that most seem to not understand with iOS 14.5 is it's not only the targeting the people that you're going after that can be harder. So if you want to target the people who purchase in 30 days, not only will not be able to reach those people, but you also won't be able to exclude those people from audiences. And so it's a bit loose in that regard, but I would say if you're setting up from scratch, I would encourage you to exclude from the get-go.
Gotcha. So in that example, that's kind of like you mentioned, in top of funnel, we want to make sure it's truly top of funnel. Facebook isn't taking credit for remarketing when that's not what we're trying to do. So I saw you were excluding a customer email list. Is that built out of Klaviyo?
Yes. Yeah, Klaviyo is such an efficient way to manage that because of it dynamically updates. And so you're not having to manually reload or update on a weekly basis yourself. So
that's handy. And then I see we got some creative up. Is there anything about this one that you'd highlight and say, hey, make sure to do this with your creative? I see you've got some great engagement, comments, shares, likes, all kinds of things on this.
Yeah, this is very fresh creative as well. So a rule of thumb with creative in Facebook ads is organic. So in terms of what looks organic on the platform, it's a rule of thumb with any platform, TikTok or Snapchat. Like if you were to take an image like this, try and run on TikTok, it'll blow out hard, as in it'll fail. And so with what works very well, you can see this creative. It's a writing kit, and it's a beautiful photography. It looks like a friend has shot it, and so it's native, but then it's as a carousel unit. So carousels typically get a higher click-through rate and can drive cheaper traffic, and they typically notice convert worse as well. So the click-through rate and conversion kind of balances itself out. In terms of video images, it varies. So this one's a video ad, and by all means, I would say test. A rule of thumb, if you want to get kickstarted, can your product be understood what it does in an image. If it can, you probably start with an image. Otherwise, by all means, you should be testing a video. And there's a lot of elements that make for a good video, but just I like rules of thumb to kickstart effectiveness.
Yeah. I'm seeing the engagement again on this one. It's just phenomenal. Is it something about the video? Like, is there something people should make sure to include in their videos if they're running video ads?
Yeah, so the way this works is through, I've never really used the terminology before, but a dark post. And so you can create a single ad unit in Facebook. So personally, I like to set up a campaign dedicated to housing your creative. And from there, you click the share button in the top right, and then you click the Facebook post with comments. And then from that, you'll go to the URL and you'll take the last lot of numbers. I don't know, this probably won't come up in the screen share, but you take the last lot of numbers in the post.
Yep, that's up in the URL, right? It's giving you the post ID.
Yep, and then you can enter it in here. When you use an existing post, enter post ID, and then you can paste it in there. And so that'll then, at least with Facebook, continue to retain the social proof over the period of time. And so what I really like about having that in a separate campaign is it provides you something that you can just easily copy and paste to scale across all campaigns as you need. And then what's even cooler, something I credit Florian Litterist, a German advertiser, is on these post IDs that you're using, you can then edit the placement. I particularly love stories and reels. And so clicking through here, you can then customize creative to the story reel placement, which is, if you're not delivering custom creative to those, it's a big opportunity to help scale an account. So it's not just having a vertical format, but people who read stories, it's a lot more concise format. And different way to present, even a different message sometimes. And so you can then customize the story creative here while having the social proof maintain the same on Facebook.
That's phenomenal. I'm going to say it back just to make sure I got it and everybody caught it. So you've got your creative might even be an organic post on the business page. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can do an organic post on the business page, or you can even you create an unpublished ad within Ads Manager.
Great. And then you're grabbing that post ID basically from up in the URL, you're copying that. And then when you're running that, you're not just saying automatically Facebook, figure out whatever placements you want. These days, it looks like you're selecting the placements and you're thinking through, this is a video, it works well vertically. This is going to be great creative basically for stories and reels.
That's right. Yeah. And it allows you to customize the video or an image, which for stories and reels are very different to video, the feed. The best, again, it's so simple as a marketer, which I need reminding every month. Like, if in doubt, go use the platform yourself and browse, get inspiration, and immerse yourself as what it's like to be a user. It builds your empathy, which is Claude Hopkins. I got a reminder of it yesterday in doing some writing in scientific advertising in what do you write? I think it's 1923 he wrote the book.
It's really a classic of direct response. Claude Hopkins, scientific advertising. And is it him? Does he also say basically what you're saying now, match the platform of you want your ad to look like an advertorial, you don't want it to look like an ad. And you're kind of saying the same thing here with Facebook, with Instagram, whatever the platform is. You want your ads to look like the organic content, not like an ad.
100%. What is an ad? when people think about advertising, they suddenly go into, okay, I've got to write an ad. And they start writing in a way that's impersonal. They start using words that I've never used in conversation. Yeah, it's amazing how people's minds change when they write. And so a little hack that I like, if you really struggle with this, is open up your email contacts and think of a friend in a market. Compose an email in Gmail and start typing out an email to convince them or educate them on this particular product, and contrast that to loading up an Ads Manager ad and writing an ad out in there. You'll see light and day the style of writing difference between the two.
Joshua, you've shared so much here. I really love it and I appreciate it. Anything else you want to say on the Facebook and paid social advertising front in terms of what you guys see working, what people should be sure to try in their own accounts?
Generally, if you're starting out, I encourage you to learn a lot. In terms of some people that I've learned from, the person that comes to mind, which I think is probably you as well, Eagan, Andrew Foxwell. He's been great. We're both part of his founders membership. His courses I provide them as training for everyone who starts with us. It's such a good kickstart. In terms of other content, I've never found much value out of Facebook Blueprint training. I keep giving them second chances every year and fail to be impressed. And Shopify, in terms of fundamental principles, there's a lady called Mary Rose. She's got some good posts published on the Shopify blog as a freelancer with remarketing, I know. Yeah, I mean, people can check out your stuff as well and our stuff. Yeah, I've got a blog post that's scaling, how we scale a Facebook ads account, which kind of summarizes a lot of principles as well.
That's great. I want to ask you two more things if you have time. So, one is the scaling piece. When you've got something that's working, like what you showed us, how do you increase the budget without losing the performance?
I think about it in two regards. There's a vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. And so vertical scaling is dial up the budget. And the way to consider doing that is firstly, is it working? So if it is profitable, which hopefully you're able to cross-check against some other platforms, Google Analytics, if it's a more shorter time window in purchase. Otherwise, if you're fortunate enough to be able to use a tool like Triple Whale, you can do that and jump in there. And so you're literally just dialing up the budget. And so typically with a campaign budget optimization, you can be more aggressive in the percentage increases, maybe 50% every 72 hours. Even, I'm not afraid to even delay that a week or 2 weeks sometimes. You can literally just keep going up until it stops working, and then dial it back down. One thing that you want to keep in mind with that is the frequency. So you can go to your columns and add the frequency metric to it and just see how often people are seeing the ad. And you'll always see a performance decline as the frequency jacks up for cold acquisition. And as well as, and a more advanced metric is a first time impression share. So on the ad set level, you can inspect an ad. I can screen share an example of this.
That's great. So you're talking about top of funnel again. We want to see, is it truly top of funnel, or are we mixing in? Are we showing it to people multiple times? Are we not reaching new people? That's kind of what you're getting at here. Is that right?
Yes. And for any scale to happen, it's got to happen at top of funnel. So this, you can't inspect it with dynamic creative. Another dynamic creative ad.
Sounds like those are working.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I can say stuff on Facebook that work for us. But I've tried to stick to a lot of principles, but you can be surprised with how things can vary between accounts. And so, yeah, this jumping in, so going to inspect at the ad set level, you can see audience saturation. There's a first time impression ratio here of 41%. And so as it lowers to typically 30%, then you'll typically want to either duplicate an ad set and just rerun it again, or sometimes just adding, even if the ad is working, just creating and adding a new ad in there. Even giving those people a different message. So that's I would say a more a metric to consider in vertically scaling. If you see performance begin to decline, if performance as well, then you can ignore it. And in terms of horizontal scaling, reaching new people, and so new audiences, and typically new creative. So sometimes you can just beginning out, you'll have the same message to a lot of people, but more so if you're going after interests. To give an example, continuing with that parenting example, maybe you've gone heavy on mums who are the primary decision makers in these purchases. But there's going to be a percentage of dads who are more of the decision maker, and so you can target them in your ad set. But then you think about it from a creative standpoint, dads are going to want to see other dads using the messaging, or other dads sharing why they love this product, as opposed to a mum. And so it's not that they wouldn't buy if they saw a mum, but you'll get better performance. And so that's a good part of scale, where you can get that creative to audience match, which helps scale. And yeah, in terms of audiences, you've got interest, you've got lookalikes, you've got broad. And so it's a mix between those three, which help you horizontally scale.
That's great. So in your account, that looks like new campaigns, basically. We've hit the gas as much as we could on vertical scaling. We're seeing a decrease in performance, or a change in the first time impression ratio. And so it's time to create a new campaign. And sometimes if that's a different type of audience, they may need a different type of creative.
That's right, yeah. And I typically like to cluster them together, so lookalikes together, interest together in the same CBO. But there's so many variants, it's quite amazing. You can have lookalike stacks, so you can, something that's popular right now is just combining all your 8% lookalikes for people who purchase, people who add to cart, people who view content, and group them all together in a single ad set. That can do well, or you can split them out into individual ad sets within the same campaign.
So I think there's probably a lot of people listening or watching that have run into this. Great, I need someone to manage paid social. I need someone to do this for my agency, to do this for my brand. You guys have a good size agency, and I know you're always hiring. How do you approach that to find people who are good at this?
The first big step, which is doable by anyone, is to document the tasks that you're doing every day. One, it'll not only help you do better with what you're doing, like you'll be surprised how you'll begin to question what you're actually doing. As you learn something from a blog post in a week's time, you're like, hold on, I can actually adapt this and apply that to my business. And then you'll actually take that advice and put it into a document system where it actually becomes reusable to you, as opposed to just a piece of vague knowledge that gets forgotten about. And so there's that documentation process with what you do, and then that'll provide leverage for you to actually create a role for someone where they can do well in the role. And when people fail in a role, there's aspects of mishires that contribute to that, but typically I would say it's the failure of the person hiring to not properly define the role, empower the person with the right skills, the right documents, help them please you. It can be a challenging thing to do, but when you document, you make it easy. And so with that done, I think the second step is defining a role very clearly and the responsibilities with that. Typically in a newer, I remember my transition from 1 to 2 as a freelancer. It was my sister, Emily. She's still with us as our SEO manager. And for me, it was kind of a safe regard and thinking about working with family. But yeah, we've done freelance work together before. And so, yeah, she had a headache with the handover of that regard, with not being able to detail what I actually wanted from her or how to do the role specifically. And I'm very compassionate and for her to stay on despite that. And so in defining a role, you can set goals, KPIs, corporate speak for it, but then clear responsibilities of what someone's actually expected to do. Early on in an organization, there'll be a lot more hats as they fill more shoes, but it's still important to define that because it creates the rules of the game between two people.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of learnings there. Make sure you document and set them up for success. And if it doesn't work out, it's kind of on you as the person hiring them.
I always forget top grading Brad Smart, I think. He's always big on doing detailed historical research of someone. I personally haven't found that valuable with my hiring. I tend to look at, particularly in digital marketing, people can swap agencies like nothing. It's crazy. Like, I don't know, people hate their job or something. And yeah, so that's firstly a red flag, at least in my hiring process, which may not apply to others' niches. But yeah, if someone has worked for a year, held a position for no more a year, I won't even reply, consider them further. And I found Gino Wickham's traction very helpful. So he has a people analyzer model, which to me provided the big aha in hiring, where actually thinking about your own values, documented out about 7 different values. For us, like one value is obsession with learning. And so you simply put a plus or a minus or a 0, and then you look for someone to get about like 70% of pluses, and then in these different values, and you know they're a good cultural fit. And so the interview process looks to walk through someone. It's nice to have clarity that the interview has a purpose in answering. You're seeking to answer those values as opposed to some random questions, and so you can craft different questions. And so an example, like what companies do you admire, is it at a glance might seem like nothing, but when you know your values, you can see what they value and transpose that against that.
That's great. Well, these are some heavy hitter books we're talking about: top grading and traction and scientific advertising. I know, I can tell we're reading some of the same stuff, and that's great to see. That's comforting for me to know I'm reading the good stuff. So, Joshua, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much. We're going to have you back on and talk about some of these other channels, because you guys are such experts in so many. But for now, tell us a little bit about who's a good fit for you guys and where can they learn more?
Yeah, thank you, Eagan. We work only with Shopify stores, so we've been Shopify expert partners since 2015. I have to check the year every time I say the year. Could be 2024. I'm still talking about 2020. So yeah, been only work with Shopify stores, and typically, they need to be established, have over 6 figures, but anywhere up to 8 figures we work with and help them scale their paid advertising and email and SEO.
Is there a good place for people to find you? Should they go to Twitter? Should they go to your website? What's a good place?
Yeah, best place is the website, so digitaldarts.com.au. We have a free course, which I'm actually rewriting right now, so it'll change in the next month. But there's still a decent free course, and there's on the blog as well, there's a lot of the Facebook scaling tips that we talked about today. There's also a piece there that I think will be useful to anyone, even if they're not working in Shopify.
Yeah, well, you guys have been there, done that, seen it working out in the wild. So that's great. Joshua, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing what's working in e-commerce.
Thank you, Eagan. Enjoyed talking to you.